Hey all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and we've hit another first of the month episode, so we're going to do another MMIW case. And as always, I struggle with, do I focus on one person or I focus on the many? And this time we're going to have multiple women brought to you. So, let's get into it, shall we? Amanda Sophia Bartlett was born in 1979 to Helen Bignell. She had numerous siblings and was part of the MMIW Cree Nation, growing up primarily with the Opaskwayak Cree Nation near the Pas, Manitoba. She was particularly close to the younger sister Janet until mid-1996 when Janet and her father moved away to New Brunswick. Amanda was described as a creative soul who loved to read and write, befriending anyone she met, even making plans to become a published author. Though, when Janet moved away, Amanda began acting out and hanging out with a different crowd. Soon after, the then 17-year-old Amanda moved to Winnipeg to attend high school. But by July 1996, she was confirmed seen for the last time by her uncle Joseph Holcrow, who she called Smokey, near the Selkirk Avenue and Salter Street in Winnipeg's North End. She was living in a child and family services group home and had run away. As usual, the group home told the family they had no obligations to follow her. After she left, they simply informed the Winnipeg police per their protocol. Quote, "My mom didn't get any phone call or any visit from a social worker," end quote, Janet reported. Weeks after she left, a letter arrived in the mail stating Amanda left the group home. Family members say they have tried to report Amanda missing several times since 1996, only to be turned away. Janet stated that one of the times a Winnipeg officer told her, quote, "I'm sorry, Janet, we don't do family reunions," end quote. After her last sighting, quote, she never applied for an SIN number, driver's license, status, or social assistance. Amanda's MB health card is still being sent to my mom's mailing address, which shows me that she never changed her address, end quote, she said. Also, quote, Amanda vanished into thin air. She was here, and now she is gone, end quote, said Janet. Janet was bounced from the Pas, Manitoba RCMP to the WPS over to Winnipeg's RCMP detachment and back again. And about this, she stated, quote, "When I got upset or frustrated, it seemed as though they would use that against me in order not to help," end quote, she said. Until she saw a documentary. It was The Stolen Sisters in 2007. Yeah, 2007. At the end of the documentary, there was a toll-free number to the Amnesty International, a global movement devoted to human rights, and they connected her to Child Find Canada. Quote, "That helped me put my foot in the door with the RCMP," end quote, she said. Janet was finally able to report her sister's disappearance to the WPS in February of 2008, over a decade after she was last seen. And as such, Winnipeg police only started working on the missing persons case in February 2008. Again, you heard that. 2008. It took 12 years and the help of Amnesty International to have her classified as a fucking missing person. 4 years later, in July 2012, the family searched a field in the outskirts of Winnipeg after receiving a tip from a medium. Then in November of 2012, the case was assigned to Project Devote, a task force dedicated to missing and murdered persons cases in Manitoba. In 2018, Amanda's mother and sister both shared their frustrations about how hard it was to report Amanda's missing person and how they were bounced back and forth between the RCMP and Winnipeg police services about who was responsible for trying to find this woman. Quote, "Why was my word and my mom's word not good enough? Why did they have to make us wait so long?" End quote, said Amanda's sister. to the MMIWG inquiry hearing in Thompson, Manitoba. Still, nothing new has come from this case, and it's considered open, and she is considered still missing. Next is Amanda Alyssa Tuccaro. Amanda Tuccaro was the daughter of Vivian Tuccaro. Amber would later go on to be the mother of one son, and she is from the Mikisew Cree First Nation. On August 18, 2010, the 20-year-old was last seen in Nisku-Alta, outside of Edmonton, Canada. She arrived with a female friend and Jacob, who was around 14 months old at the time, from Fort McCurry, where she was living with her mother. Their plan was to stay the night outside the city to save money and head into Edmonton the next day. Amber was excited, though, and decided to hitchhike into the city that night. When she didn't return the next day, her friend that was watching her son called her mother, who then called the RCMP. The response from the RCMP was, as per usual, not well received. Vivian stated the police responded with, quote, well, maybe she's out partying and she will call or whatever, end quote. Vivian responded, quote, and I was like, no, Amber doesn't leave her baby anywhere, end quote. On August 28, 2012, police released a recording of a phone conversation they had of Amber with an unidentified male, and they were using it in attempts to get an identification of him. Multiple calls came in claiming it was a certain man, but according to the RCMP, they investigated and refute that it's him. Then, on September 1st, 2012, 2 years after she went missing, her remains were found by horseback riders. But another mishandling of the investigation or an egregious mistake occurred after her body is found. Amber's personal property the police collected was destroyed when she was taken off the missing persons list, meaning any evidence on it was lost. So a potential homicide, they just decide to get rid of anything that would be helpful, it sounds like. In 2017, the Tuccaro family increased the reward for information to $5,000 and started a Justice for Amber campaign on social media. Vivian said in the wake of losing her daughter, quote, I am 56 years old now and raising a little boy that is so full of energy. He drives me crazy, but at the same time, he's my sanity. I mean, he is all that I have left of my baby, end quote. She said while talking about her grandson and Amber's son, Jacob. Quote, just the way he looks at me sometimes, and the way he stands like his mommy, the way he says his words. He says them the way Amber used to. Like Amber had a witty attitude, and that's what Jacob has, end quote. On March 20th, 2014, Vivian filed a complaint with the chair of Commission for Public Complaints against the Leduc RCMP. The complaint says investigators downplayed Amber's disappearance and took her off the missing persons list after 1 month despite no one seeing her. Quote, so when they told me they took her off the missing persons list, my first question was, did you guys see her? And they said, no. And I was like, how could you take her off after telling me time and time again that you have to see her and be 100% sure that's her? And yet, you take her off? End quote, Vivian said. As of this time, Amber's case remains open and unsolved. Andria Meise. Andria Meise was born in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and raised in Kelowna, the oldest in a line of 4. Her sister Danielle remembers Andria being taken away several times as a child. Quote, I just remember her coming home in the middle of winter, no shoes, no coat, crying, telling us that this was the stuff that was going to her new home, end quote. Unfortunately, her unstable childhood continued to remain unstable as she got into drugs when she got older, and in addition, her addiction led to sex work. Robin Meise said around the time Andria went missing, she frequently traveled to places such as Vancouver, Williams Lake, Prince George, Dawson Creek, Port St. John, Grand Prairie, Calgary, and Edmonton. Quote, she had a high-risk lifestyle and was into drugs and prostitution, but she was also really nice and would give you the shirt off her back, end quote, said Robin. Danielle stated of it, quote, when you're kind of living that lifestyle, it's a daily thing. Just being native and being female, anything could happen at any time, end quote. It was in 2006 when Danielle first attempted to report Andria missing in Kelowna, but the RCMP once again didn't take anybody seriously, owing to Andria's lifestyle in this instance. Andria left Kelowna in 2008 and was known to move between Dawson Creek and Fort St. John. Between June and September 2010, Andria was spotted in Grand Prairie at the Tim Hortons by her uncle. But at the time, that uncle was unaware she was missing and didn't approach her. In 2012, the RCMP finally opened a missing persons file that November. But since then, there have been no updates or movement in her case either. Annette Margaret Holywhiteman. Annette Holywhiteman was last seen in Edmonton, Alberta, that area at least late in summer of 2008. Annette was 44 years old when she was last seen. A missing persons file was not opened, however, until March of 2009, months after her disappearance. Most sources stated that this was a result of being a known sex worker again. Annette was reportedly known as a calm, passive woman who wasn't afraid to stand up for herself, if necessary, according to friends and family. Anyway. Then, a woman's skull was found by hunters on November 13th of 2010 on a rural property about 10 kilometers northwest of Westlock, Alberta. Still, it took 2 years, so until 2012, for dental records to confirm Annette's identity. The CARE unit, an RCMP identity that investigates and reviews files of murdered or missing vulnerable persons throughout Alberta, is handling this homicide case. In 2012, the RCMP Media Relations Officer Sean LeMay stated, quote, we're doing our due diligence and being extremely thorough with the investigation, as might be expected, end quote. He also said, quote, we have a number of investigators that are out in the area conducting a search to make sure nothing is left uncovered, end quote. Social worker Carrie Thomason stated of Annette's death, quote, it's another who was senselessly killed. Nobody deserves this, and there are people targeting our women out there, end quote. According to the Edmonton Sun, quote, like many of the women that Thomason helps, however, Holywhiteman had an unshakable drug addiction that would keep her tangled in the street life. There was just way too much baggage, and she didn't have the greatest support system, she said. She was on the path. She completed treatment. She was making the efforts, but the demon of the drug was more powerful than what we could help her with. End quote. As always, there are many more cases, but each one is important to tell, and I will take my time to try and find any information I can find. Often, it is little to almost none, as most of you guys have noticed. And now, remember, to all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.